Hi scholars, this video is called GS-4 and this video is all about constructing your driving question and making sure that you have that really big idea chart including your generalizations. So at this point of the research process, you should be about halfway through your research. You definitely want to start writing your driving question as you're a third or halfway through your research so that you have a good understanding of your topic before you ask a really good question about it. You also want to make sure that your conflict is an actual conflict with two opposing sides as indicated in the previous video. And you want to make sure that you have enough time to continue the research process so you can try to answer your driving question. So that's where you should be in the process right now. So chapter 5 starts on page 61. This chapter includes resources on how to write your driving question. There's a difference between level 1 and level 2 students, so make sure that you're doing the correct one. And this is also the foundation of your project. If you remember from last year, you would have remembered that the driving question is like the biggest showstopper in terms of what's on your trifold board, right? So the driving question is big, it's bold, and it's designed in a creative way. It draws your audience members in. So when they see that driving question, whether it's on the bottom or the top of your board, sticking out with amazing artistic, creative details, people are going to want to find out more because your driving question is riveting, it's inspiring, it's something that draws people's attention. But your driving question also has to be a true driving question that has gate components in it. How do you do this? We have a formula for you. So we're going to go ahead and look at level 1. For level 1 students, you only need 2 components. You need your topic, which is your issue that you're going to be focusing on. So for example, if you chose to do yours on the robotization of factories, okay, if you chose to do yours on food and declining health in America, if you decided to do yours on global warming or net neutrality or wildfires, that's your issue. And how are you going to make sure that that's a conflict? Because you had to watch the other video and make sure that you had 2 opposing sides, right? And you're also going to have a conflict word. So we have the topic word here. So your topic is like global warming or childhood obesity or the Syrian civil war. It itself is a problem that you want to solve, right? And then you're going to add a conflict word. You can use the word conflict, or you can use the word problem, dilemma, contradiction, controversy, disagreement, struggle, battle, encounter, war, contention, rivalry. There's so many words here. And you know what? If you find a word that means conflict, but it's not in this list, just ask your mentor teacher if you can use it. And if they say yes, then you can use it. We want you to use words that invoke conflict, but you don't have to actually use the word conflict, because how boring would it be if every single symposium project had the same word in their driving question, the word conflict. Plus, not all conflicts are equal and some are better described with other synonymous words. So you're going to make sure you write your driving question. Here are some examples of driving questions. This is an example of a level 1 question. How does air pollution create a debate among developing and industrialized nations? So if you look at this question, it has the topic, which is air pollution, and it also has debate, which is a conflict word. Debate is in the box of conflict words that we have provided for you. So this is a perfect level 1 question because it incorporates both elements, the topic and the conflict word. And as you can see in the question, it's going to be about opposing sides. This person will most likely make their research or frame their research by showing how developing nations, like countries that are now starting to create factories and have more pollution or greenhouse gases being emitted into the air, these countries may have a different understanding or expectation or standard as opposed to countries who have already industrialized in the past and now are moving on to greener sources of energy. So they may have differences in opinion, which means that they will have to resolve the issue. And these are actually relevant conflicts that are happening in our world today. You have countries like China that are developing and growing exponentially, and then you have countries like France and Germany and maybe America who have certain expectations and want to cap the amount of greenhouse gases or pollution that is created by developing nations. So this is a very interesting debate, and it's your job to research it. Here's a second example of a level 1 question. How does animal testing cause division within the scientific community? So in purple, once again, you have the topic, which is animal testing. And then in red, you have the conflict word, which is division. So in this particular question, you will notice that the person will most likely be researching how there is a disagreement or a conflict, a debate, a division within different between different scientists. So for example, someone who studies different animal species, like a zoologist, might have a very different perspective when it comes to animal testing. That person might be against animal testing as opposed to a different type of scientist, like a pathologist, which is a type of scientist who studies diseases and viruses. This particular scientist may believe that animal testing is his only way or her only way to test out vaccines or test out different ways to prevent diseases. So both sides of this issue have very valid points and perspectives. And so it's your job to determine what a resolution could be between these two opposing forces within the scientific community when it comes to animal testing. After you have your driving question written down, make sure you get your mentor teacher's signature. Make sure you get the date of approval, and this is very important. You do need to show Miss Park your driving question so that she can register your driving question, including your group members' names, into her database so that she can keep track of everybody and make sure that if you do get approved for Symposium, you get notification. If you get to present at the Symposium event, then you get put into the pamphlet for parents and audience members to take home. So you definitely need to get that additional signature from Ms. Park. You can come see her at any point during class as long as your mentor teacher gives you permission. So you can just get your agendas out, like you're going to the restroom and you just write a hall pass and then you get your teacher's permission. Only if your teacher allows it. If your teacher doesn't allow it, then you must come during nutrition or lunch, before or after school. So make sure you get Ms. Park to register your group and your driving question, and that way she can keep tabs on all the groups, how many groups are possibly going to be presenting, and she can keep everything organized. All right. Okay, so there's some extra space for thinking. You don't have to use all these blank spaces, but you can if you need to. But here's the thing. It's going to be really difficult to come up with a driving question your first question is not going to be your driving question. You're going to have to revise it multiple times. Just like when you're writing a thesis statement for an English paper, you want to make sure your driving question is really good. So you might have to refine it and revise it several times. So you might want to use the blank spaces to write out a rough draft and to make it better and better and better. And then when you finally think it's pretty good, then you could use the final version and put it into this box and get it approved. Okay? All right, so if you're a level 1 student, you can stop listening right now and you could fast forward. I'll write down in the description box and also on this screen what minute and second mark that you should skip over to, because that's the part where I talk about the generalizations and the big idea chart. So now it's time for level 2 students. So for level 2 students, you're essentially going to be doing the same exact thing. Okay, you're going to be looking for, or you're going to be including the topic and the conflict word, but you also need a gate icon or imperative. So the word contribution, you can change the verb, that you can change these part of speech and say contributes to or contributes from, or how does it contribute or how has it contributed. You can use like originate, converges. You can say how do the patterns of blah, blah, blah. You can say how has this changed over time. You can use any of these things as long as you also have the topic word and the conflict word. So here are some level 2 examples of driving questions. So for a level 2 driving question, you could have, how does veganism contribute to disagreements between members of cultural or religious communities? This was actually a project that was done last year. As you can see by the purple, yellow highlighted word and the red, you have the 3 components. You have the topic, which is veganism. You have the conflict word, which is disagreements. And you also have the gate imperative, which is contribution. But we just changed the part of speech to make it into a verb, contribute. So in this question, you would notice that the person will be, the group will be researching their topic by looking at how veganism creates disagreements within religious or cultural communities where maybe veganism is seen in a negative way because maybe it conflicts with certain religious practices or holidays, or it even goes against certain cultural norms. So this group had a really cool project last year. All three of the students in this group were Catholic, and they went vegan for Easter week. And so, and then they basically journaled their experiences every single day of that week, including how their family members, their grandparents, people who came over for Easter dinner, how these people reacted to their decision, and how they were seen as rude, or they were seen as not respectful because of their decision to not eat any animal products during Easter week, which was a very interesting experience for the students who conducted this research. Here's one more example of a level 2 driving question, and this again comes from last year. To what extent does violent music impact the motives of individuals towards deadly conflicts? So the group of guys who did this project last year were really interested in people who committed crimes against others, especially violent crimes, murders, even mass shootings. And they found patterns in their research that not all, but many of these individuals were also into certain types of music, certain genres of music. And so they wanted to see if there's really a correlation. And so that's why it says to what extent, which means how much. Like, is it really a correlation? Is it really connected, or is it just coincidence, right? And so they have the three components. You have the topic, which is violent music. You have the conflict word, and this time they use the word conflict. And then they not only have one, but they have two gate icons. So they have impact and motives as their gate icons. So that's what their research was about. So they researched and they found two sides of this issue. They found that there are people, a lot of people who believe that it is the fault of violent music. And then they also found opinions of social scientists, psychologists, who believe that it's not the violent music, but it's other factors. And so they were able to look at these two opposing sides and find out if there's really any truth to the idea that violent music makes people violent. It was a very interesting research study. So now I'm going to move on to the next thing. So this was a component, if you're a 7th and 8th grader, you probably remember this, that was required last year, where you had to have a big idea chart and you put it on the back of your board. This year, we decided to put it on the front of your board. Everybody is going to have their big idea chart all about conflict because, like I said, there are 12 universal themes, but this year we're going to only focus on the universal theme of conflict. And if you don't remember what the universal theme of conflict is or what the 5 generalizations are, all you got to do is look at the back of your book, because the back of your book has all 5 generalizations. Conflict is composed of opposing forces. Conflict may be natural or man-made. Conflict may be intentional or unintentional. Conflict may allow for synthesis and change, and conflict is progressive. And if you don't know what these generalizations mean, I explained them. Go to chapter 4, page 50. As you can see here are all the different generalizations, all 5 of them, and it gives you an easier translation of what these ideas mean. So for example, conflict is composed of opposing forces. That just means that there are 2 sides that are against each other. You know what? That's probably the most common generalization that almost pretty much everybody will choose, right? Because your conflict obviously has to have opposing sides. And then we have conflict may be natural or man-made, and it explains that means that conflict is created by human beings or it's created by nature. Conflict may be intentional or unintentional. It's on purpose or not on purpose, one or the other or both. May allow for synthesis and change. That means that through time it changes or it becomes something else, or things form together. And then conflict is progressive is kind of similar, but it just means that in newer situations, in modern times, the conflict looks different. So as time moves on, the conflict changes to a different situation, to a different conflict, to a new conflict, to a worse conflict, to a better situation. It just changes over time. Here are the 5 generalizations. If you're a level 1 student, you only have to pick 2 of them. And if you want, you can do 3. If you're a level 2 student, you have to do all 5 of them. So let's go back to where I was just talking about the really big idea chart. So this is the really big idea chart right here. You have your topic here, okay? And then you have your 3 generalizations that you've chosen, or 2 or 5, and you write 1 to 2 sentences on how this generalization pertains to your conflict. Okay, so let's say you chose global warming and you're doing is composed of opposing forces. You have to explain in one or two sentences how that is related to that generalization. Please do not just repeat the generalization. I tell my students that's basically translating English to worse English. You're not going to just say global warming has opposing forces because there's opposing forces because they're two sides that go against each other. That is not correct. If you write that way, we will not approve your project. And trust me, we look at all the words, we read everything. And because I know that you guys are awesome students who have great potential, if I see something that doesn't reach that potential, I will tell you and make sure you redo it. So we don't want to do that because you only get one chance to submit and get it revised. So you don't want to miss your opportunity to be part of this amazing event. So be sure that your writing, your analysis, your connections are really well written and you're thinking critically. So make sure you explain what those two opposing forces are, especially if you're doing your conflict. Obviously, you're going to have two sides, like I said in the previous video. So explain what those two sides are and how they oppose each other. Be detailed and specific. You might be wondering, how am I supposed to make this paper? It looks really complicated. Do I have to create a Google drawing? You don't, because we decided to save you lots of time. So if you go to the https://goo.gl/lowercase q, lowercase x, capital K, capital S, lowercase u, capital L, I know it's long, but it's actually shorter than the actual URL. If you write that correctly into your URL, and right now since I have a PDF, I can just click it. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy. Make sure you keep copies of this in your folder and make sure you share this with all your group members if you have a shared Google folder. You will notice that there are 4 different versions. There's an example, there's one with 3 generalizations, there's one with 2, and there's one with 5. So if you are a level 1 student, you can delete the ones you're not going to use. So we already did it for you. We already created a template. All you got to do is type in the boxes. Let's say you're a level 1 student and you're going to do only 2 generalizations. So you're going to type in your first generalization in here. You're typing in your second one. Obviously, your topic is going to be typed in. Obviously, you're going to write sentences that are correct. You're also going to use capitalization, correct spelling, punctuation marks, make sure that your ideas make sense, okay? And then you're going to write down 1 or 2 sentences on how these generalizations are related to your topic. So then you're ready to go, and all you got to do is get it corrected and approved by your mentor. Say, Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, can you check this and make sure it sounds okay? And if they say it's good to go, all you got to do is click the print button. Okay, and you only have to print the page that you're using. So just page 3, because you're only doing the one with 2, right? And if you want to make it bigger, you can do fit to page. If you want to make it even bigger, you can change the size. And all you got to do is print it. And when you print it, you're ready to use this exact document that you've printed out for your trifold board. All you need to do is put it on construction paper backing with a border around it. So you cut it out, you make it look nice. Remember, the color of the construction paper has to match and matter, so it has to match your ideas. So if you're doing a solemn, sad topic, you don't want to choose bright, cheerful colors, okay? So you want everything to align with each other, and then you're going to put it on your board. So this is one of the things that we did this year to make your lives easier. Last year, we had everybody make their own big idea chart, and it took a lot of time. We don't have time for that. We'd rather you spend more time on making your research really solid, on writing really great analysis and information, and less time on just like drawing out the big idea chart. Plus, we want to have you guys use all of your creativity skills on making your trifold boards look amazing. So that is how you do the really big idea chart. This video was all about writing your driving question and creating your really big idea chart. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by my classroom and ask me. Thanks everyone, keep up the great work. All right, and one quick announcement. We will be having a frozen treat party after school on February 2nd, which is a Friday. All you need to do is go to the cafeteria area near the stage, show your driving question to any of the Symposium mentor teachers who will be there, and if you show your driving question and it's approved, then you will be getting a sweet treat. So make sure you stop by after school on Friday, February 2nd in the cafeteria area. Thanks, guys.